Welcome back to North American Vintage Champs and round 8. Steve, we're getting in here to the penultimate round, and it's you and me for the rest of the day. Welcome back.
I'm thrilled.
we've
Let's
got
do
a,
it.
we've got a great matchup of undefeateds for you this round. So we've got Brian Coval on Oath of Druids, whom we've seen already today on stream, and his deck is, I think, a known quantity today. And we've also got Oliver Vogeli, it looks like, on HollowVine, another deck that we've seen multiple times on stream today. So we've got two very well-known quantities, and it looks like players are resolving mulligans. I saw Brian put a card or two on the bottom. And Brian looks like he's on the play.
These decks also happen to be the most prevalent in the field of nearly 400 today. So
that's
not
right.
Surprising. Not surprising we're seeing them, but especially not surprising in the hands of very skilled players. So the turn one Bazaar.
This is a high pressure match too. I mean, this match is a win and in. It looks like X1 and 1 is going to be a clean cut for this top 8. So these players are playing for the privilege of drawing if they so choose.
Well, 702 would almost assuredly make it. Would make it. But they couldn't.
True, yes.
They could have drawn here, but then they couldn't guarantee that the following round their opponent could draw with them. So I guess they had to decide to.
Looks like X1 or better is needed. Yeah.
Right. No, but X02 has one small match point behind X1, right?
So strong start here for Oliver. Bazaar into double Root Walla plus Squee in the graveyard for future benefit, and Chalice on 0, which limits Brian's option, but doesn't stop him from putting an Oath of Druids on the stack this turn. And Brian has channeled Boseiju to destroy Bazaar of Baghdad. Oliver not searching, no surprise, no thing to be brought back there, but the Squee does come back out of the graveyard. So Brian just playing the Stone Rain version of his game 1 matchup here, but Oliver had the second Bazaar already.
Sick.
This discard here is going to tell a big story.
Oh, God.
2 more Root Wallas, and that Squee is back. So Oliver has put together basically a hollow one here. He's got 4 power on the battlefield. Hey, there's another one. All right, so now 8 power in play for Oliver. And oh wow, Brian has seen enough. Gosh, he had a couple more turns in him there, but I guess his hand was telling him that he was not going to be able to find Oath in time.
Well, this is one of the dilemmas of playing against dredges. You know what your options, your counter tactics are very limited in the first game. Everything that you have generally is in the sideboard. So makes sense. Let's go to the sideboard. Let's make this more competitive. Let me reserve my mental energy for this marathon of the day for the games that matter the most.
So we have some of the typical players here in terms of anti-oath technology for Oliver coming out of the Bazaar deck. He's got Karakas, which is big game against Atraxa and other things, but we've already seen it on camera today how Sarah's Emissary is notably not a legend. So we expect Karakas to come in, but it is not the game sealing card that it might be against the main deck.
Exactly. Yeah, so we're going to expect Brian to bring in certainly the Tabernacle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably, well, what else do you think is coming in?
The 2 Sarah's Emissaries are the part of the standard package.
Yes, in addition to that.
Beyond that, he's got some optional things. Sphinx of the Seal Wind, we know, is a powerful tactic against these HollowVine decks, so I would expect that to be available to Brian post sideboard. And then it's kind of a question because I don't know how well these players know each other's lists, but Brian has the opportunity to bring in things like Dismember and Force of Vigor.
Right.
But I genuinely don't believe that either of those cards have targets that he needs to worry about from Oliver's deck. So this is going to be an interesting exercise in how familiar Brian is with either this matchup or this player as to whether or not either of those come in. It looks like, judging by the way he rifled through his sideboard there, that they stayed in the sideboard.
Yeah. Not particularly surprising. I mean, this is going to be some marginal upgrades. More marginal than I would have expected, actually. But when your optimization plan is mostly swapping creatures, it's
the Sarah's Emissary is a big hit, though. It really is. I mean, Oliver has no answer to that card. Literally no answer. He has to prevent it from entering the battlefield.
Yeah, these HollowVine decks for a while played cards like Snapback, in many quantities. But that was when the deck had, I guess it was the pre-version of this, had no, it was the version of this that had
Yeah.
like 4 misdirection and 4 snapback, in addition to the force of negation, force of will,
Right.
force of vigor.
And we've seen a variant on camera today that had the copy of Snapback in the hands of Cedric Phillips. So
Yeah.
that kind of thing is in the room here today. And that's another excellent question as to whether or not Brian knows that or not. He has
Yeah.
to. I mean, I'm sure he's aware of that technology,
That
but
it's
it's
possible.
up to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, to how much
But
he plans on it.
he's probably more aware of the fact that the introduction of Modern Masters 2 with Blazing Rootwalla and Fury kind of displaced those more marginal blue tactics.
Yes.
So
looks like Oliver is going straight to a mulligan, and Brian. I'm not sure if he has already said he keeps. Okay, him putting his hand down says he's keeping 7.
So let's shout out. I think Brian has a pretty substantial and ongoing stream. He's a streamer, right? Like does Bosch and Roll,
Oh yeah,
Vintage and
absolutely.
Legacy. So we should plug
Yeah,
that.
If you don't know Brian, he's a daily streamer, and well, he produces most of his content straight to YouTube, and he plays all the Eternal formats and some things that are right on the are Eternal adjacent, depending on how you define that term. So he's playing mostly Modern, Legacy, and Vintage, with a couple of exceptions. And yeah, I would definitely recommend watching his material. And if you didn't see it, he's got lots of prep material for this weekend for Legacy and Vintage.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know also, and I only know this from what he has said on his stream, but he has partnered closely with other notable streamer, Justin Gennari, and I am actually level 1 on this particular oath list. I mean, the two of them have have both been running this list for a couple of events now. I don't know that they're exactly on the same 75. We had Justin on stream earlier, but I didn't actually compare the two side by side. I won't be surprised if it's the same 75. Okay, it looks like Oliver's on 5. I think that 2 was marking the number of mulligans, hopefully not the number of cards he kept. Brian with Mana Crypt Go with a tropical island. An interesting start. I wonder what that represents. Might just be Boseiju on turn 1.
Yeah, probably. If he had show and tell, you got to think he would have played it with.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh,
there's Strip Mine, one of his primary tactics against Bazaar.
Absolutely. Quite important.
Let's see what Oliver's first discard is. Possibly his only discard. Although I'd be surprised. Bazaar player today have tended to have access to multiples per game. Wasteland, Ghost Quarter, and Squee. That's what I get out of that.
Yeah, no Rootwallas. Oh, but he does have the Noxious Revival, which has done some interesting stuff so far today.
That's right. This card has been slicing and dicing on camera today.
But this is its primary function, which is to recur Bazaars that have been wastelanded, or to get a second Bazaar that you had to bin.
And Force of Will from Brian on Noxious Revival, which is the rare case where you're able to Force of Will a land, basically. Oh, this situation, the advantage bar just flew strongly in Brian's favor now, with no other play from Oliver. No second Bazaar.
No.
Brian's got a second Trop. Let's see how he can deploy other threats or answers in his hand. Squee coming back to hand for Oliver.
The Bazaar decks can survive in situations like this, but they usually need some other tactic going. They need like a hollow one in play, or a Deathrite Shaman, or something else. This kind of version of Hollow One doesn't use Deathrite because it's no lands, basically, no mana producing lands. It's all just Bazaar, Wasteland, and Strip. And
here's both for Brian, and it didn't look like that was the card he drew this turn. His body language suggests that he's actually been holding on to that.
Yeah.
And chose this moment. Here's
go.
Force of Vigor, pitching Vengevine for Oliver. Brian deciding how and if he responds.
He's
Force
like,
of Will.
Okay.
That's pitching Hellkite. Or not Hellkite, but Sphinx.
Steel.
Yeah. So he double Force, double Monster to go with this Oath.
And I think he was only 2 mana away from casting it too.
Except for the colors.
Yeah, the white. Yep.
And slowly dying to his own Mana Crypt. We'll see how that long. Oh, there's the answer to your own Mana Crypt.
Yep.
Although with Oath in play, he doesn't want to do that. But still, he'll make the food and decide later.
Yeah.
Well, that was a very good top deck for Brian. I mean, that gives
Very.
him tons of options and flexibility for the rest of this game. Oliver still languishing in an empty board.
Every turn that goes by without drawing a Bazaar, his chances diminish rapidly.
Yep. Brian down to 9. He doesn't have infinite time here with this Mana Crypt, but the worst case scenario is he lets Oliver Oath,
Yes.
which is not actually a deal breaker for Brian. It really isn't, because lots of Oliver's creatures on an individual basis are not very good, like Squee and Root Wallace. Brian consumes a food in order to offset a turn of Mana
Exactly.
Crypting.
He
He's
can
been here before.
yeah. He can gain life at a pace that should exceed the average life loss here. So
Look at Oko on 10 counters. This is incredible.
isn't it? I mean, we have seen. Wow. Okay. Will it make a difference? Let's see here.
It only took 4 or 5 turns, but Bazaar number 2 has showed up. Now we know he's holding 1 Squeeze, so we expect.
Wow.
Oh, here's going to be the hand. Vengevine, Squeeze, got a Master of Death. He's got a Root Walla. So here comes 1 Root Walla.
Does he want to? He has to. He doesn't really have a choice.
There it is. Double Root Walla Vengevine.
Yep. And he knows it's coming. He knows that.
That's right.
Or Sarah's Emissary.
Yeah, there's just no good answers here for Oliver. Now he's holding Caracas, which he's been sandbagging, apparently. I mean, obviously he just drew Bazaar this turn.
Right.
So he gets a turn. If Atraxa comes down, he gets a turn of beat down into Atraxa without Atraxa in play. I mean, but if Sarah Emissary comes down right now, we might just see Oliver scoop.
It's a big one. This is a big oath.
There's Atraxa.
Okay.
Caracas isn't in play yet, so she's going to be there at least until Oliver's turn.
And these 10 cards are going to be hugely significant.
Ooh, Demonic Tutor.
Ooh, that should be it. Demonic Tutor into Time Walk. That's game.
Look at all those sorceries. And yes, I think you're right. I think Demonic Tutor into Time Walk probably seals this game. Although a second Atraxa is not that good for Brian, if he hits her, but he's got Brainstorm too, so he can do a lot of fixing here. He's got Boseiju to get rid of Bazaar if he wants to.
I wonder what the downside is to have played the Caracas, besides the possibility of it getting wastelanded.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point from a scenario standpoint. I think my read is that he wanted Brian to overvalue the oath, I guess, because he didn't have a good answer to it otherwise. But that's just my impression of the situation.
The alternative to playing the creatures, well, he had to discard things, right? That he could have just tried to dig for force of vigor. But
true. That's true. He did not have to pull the trigger on that set of creatures. But also, let's not forget the Oko with 10 counters on it. I mean,
Brian is only at 4
already. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's missed almost everyone. He's missed every one of the Boshin rolls here. So
well played. Here is what you predicted, Demonic Tutor. And Force of Negation. Okay. Disrupting Brian's plans. Fighting the good fight. Brian does have access to Force of Will. I didn't see the cards behind
3 life to do it.
Oh, he's got Flash also. Okay.
Yeah.
He's got flexibility of options here. He could Brainstorm in response to this if he felt like it, but pitching Flash is very easy at this point, I would say.
And he's not used the Oko this turn because it's still sitting at 10.
Right.
So he can turn off the Mana Crypt immediately. And then
that's a really good point. Yes. He can do that. No, I said
and there's Time Walk.
A really good point.
As we anticipated, so he should now destroy his own or turn his Mana Crypt into a creature. Let's see.
Yep.
He is
Plus
sitting at 3
Oko.
life. There we go.
Yep.
Mana Crypt is now a 3/3 creature, green creature. It shall do no more damage this game to him.
Steve,
Oh,
it really we're getting to the point in this world where it wouldn't be a vintage champs without a 3/3 elk of some restricted artifact marching across for the win.
I really wouldn't. But
There's
we
the
did
second
get to see,
Atraxa. Yeah.
and the scoop happens. Okay, we're getting the game 3. We've now seen both decks do their thing very effectively. Um,
Right. We're set up
lots
for a
of
really interesting game 3.
lots of early game interaction, lots of fighting, wasteland over the bazaars. That's really the weaknesses of these decks, especially the HollowVine deck. I mean, Dredge can get its Bazaar wastelanded and stay pretty much on track because it can just dredge Stinkweed Imps and Golgari Grave Trolls and things like that turn after turn. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the HollowVine deck doesn't have that advantage. It really needs the Bazaar to stay in play to keep the whole machine running. Interesting. Brian
See,
Coval had
Brian doesn't
sideboard.
have he doesn't have Portal or Citadel in post board. Not too much of a surprise, but it means
No,
his Tinker is only getting Sphinx of the
hitting
Steelwind, basically.
exactly.
Yep. Which is a very respectable threat / answer in this matchup.
Really, more than respectable. It's the key in many respects. Can't be Force of Vigored. It can't be um, Furied.
Yep. Can't be Caracas. And we know
Yeah,
that, although I don't know, again, we don't know if Brian knows it, but we know that Oliver doesn't have Snapback. So, yep. I have to feel like this matchup post sideboard favors Brian pretty well. The thing he's up against is just kind of the fail rate of his own deck combined with the raw power of Oliver's. Because Oliver's draws are far more consistent, and there's a delicate needle that Brian needs to thread, and any deck really needs to thread because HollowVine tends to have an explosive start, but then as the game goes along, if those resources are there, that's it. Players are continuing to shuffle up for game 3. Oliver will be on the play. One last check of the sideboard. Still no changes to make. Plenty of time left on the clock for the third game, as the table judge was just confirming.
it's amazing how much is riding on this particular game. I mean, this is not
A
only
ton, yeah.
is this a yeah, not only does this game guarantee access to the top 8, it puts you in pole position for the top seed. It's
Very
just a
much so.
silly.
Looks like both players quickly evaluating that their 7s were not sufficient.
In a sense, this might be the most important game in this tournament so far.
That's right. It's worth noting that in the midst of this round, there's only 3 undefeated players at 7-0, and these are 2 of them.
Yes.
They are second
Yes.
and third in the standings, where
Right.
Anthony Valentin is on Jewel Shops in first place. Looks like Oliver's going down to 5.
Ooh.
Brian appears to be resolving his London Mulligan to keep on 6. Now, the Oath of Druids deck is not a critical mass deck. It can still execute its primary game plan with like Landmark's Oath, as you well know, but it it can't rely on that plan against this matchup. Generally speaking, it's not a reliable plan to just go that low and mainline Oath. It's still Plan A, but the HollowVine deck, in contrast, can function very effectively on low resources, and we've seen it a number of times on camera today.
Yeah.
So I think 6
Yeah.
is a pretty good floor for how
An
far Brian
ordinary.
really is
Yeah. But,
comfortable going in
well,
terms of mulligans.
Oath is I don't know that I mean, Oath has always been a deck that's. I mean, you technically only need 3 cards. Like, yeah, okay. So you really need 3 cards to go Forbidden Orchard, Mox, Oath, right? Like, but yes, you want a little bit of protection. You want a little bit more extra development. I think Oath can
Yeah.
comfortably go to 5 or 6, especially on the draw, which Brian is on the draw.
Good point. The draw matters. All right. So looks like Oliver kept on 5, I think, and he's got Bazaar as you would expect. Let's see what his first discard is.
Hopefully, Vengevine, Vengevine. Okay, it's a Bazaar.
Root Wall,
A
Wasteland,
yeah.
Serum Powder, and there's a hollow one. Okay. A respectable
Okay.
start for low resources,
Very.
though those 2 extra cards are not great.
Jeez.
Ancestral for Brian. Ooh, straight to resolution too. Oliver just not mincing any words about the fact that he was not going to respond to that ancestral.
Yeah, the mental misstep is restricted these days.
Brian's
And
got at
Brian's
least 1 Mox in hand. No, 2 Moxes. Yeah.
not of the right colors though. Take 5. Can Oliver apply enough pressure quickly enough? Do you Bazaar here, Kevin? Do you Bazaar? Interesting.
Interesting.
I really don't know how I feel about that. Because you're going to have to empty your entire hand just to wasteland Brian's. It is a tempo play, but you lose so many resources. It's like negative, it's like basically trade your hand to wasteland this trop. Yeah, he just
gosh, and he has nothing else of value out of the graveyard. Force Bazaar.
I hate that play, but I'm not.
Oh, and show and tell against an opponent with an empty hand. Oliver was max punished for that play.
Oh my god.
Oh,
wait a second. So for that to have happened, he played the wasteland and
jeez. You got to feel a little bad for Oliver. I mean, yeah.
Wow.
He was not playing that wasteland as a tempo play. He was using it to respect Tabernacle, is what he was doing. Wow.
Exactly.
Think about his hand though. It was a blue force and a green force.
Yes.
Neither of which he can play, and a Bazaar, which he just determined the wasteland was a superior card.
Exactly.
Oh wait, but he could play the green force because he was using Noxious Revival.
No, he couldn't. He couldn't. So if he had held the Noxious Revival, he could have. Right. And then he could have hit the 2 Moxen.
Interesting.
The 2 Moxen would have prevented this play easily.
That was a really interesting line. Oh,
it was a very, very significant decision.
He pulled another Bazaar off.
Well, now we now know one reason he's been doing so well, that his deck likes to yield him Bazaars.
He's going to think about that one later. I guarantee it.
He'll have plenty of time to reflect. He's not out of this tournament, but that is a pretty big blow.
I think this is main phase Mystical Tutor for Brian. Oh, well, I've got Brian as the winner. It looks like this game didn't last longer than this because I don't know what Brian got. Maybe he got time walk and then just drew into it during this turn. Yeah. Which is I'm sure enough to cause a concession. All right. Well, congratulations to our first Brian.
Guaranteed. Yeah, we have a guarantee. I mean, Brian could lose the last match and still make the top 8, so he's in. Bosch and Roll. That's right. Yet another Vintage Championship top 8. Congratulations, Bosch and Roll. Check out his stream. I think we're going to go to the RB game, right?
Yeah, we've got a cool backup match that we'll come back to in a minute. We're going to take a bit of a break, and then we'll come back for our backup match for round 8. We'll see you soon.